Low flying plane leaves trail. Left a little trail there. The sky is just obliterated. It's just ridiculous that we're supposed to believe this is just normal. Of course it's not normal. And of course it has an impact on our environment, on our weather, in many different ways. We've just got to realise that this is a developing program that's been in development for really, the truth is, at least 200 years. The scientific endeavour, serious scientific endeavour to control the weather is at least 200 years old. And this is what we're getting. Our atmosphere is completely modified with specific agents for weather modification, be it ice crystals, be it metal particles, be it gases, be it changes in the electric field. There's many different ways, different particulate matter, all kinds of hygroscopic material, all kinds of stuff they're putting into our atmosphere deliberately for large-scale weather modification. Now, the weather is being modified, we're getting extremes created, we're having a jet stream being moved, we're getting droughts, floods, storms. Now, all those things happened anyway, but now they can happen by design. They've been deliberately working at how they can do this. And the motivation for this, apart from learning to control the hydrological cycles so they can control the water supply of the world, the next oil, and controlling food supply through the bioeconomy of the United Nations, where they will try to force the world onto GMO foods, so you can have complete domination of the food supply. They are trying to create a public license by manufacturing public consent for the uptake of the United Nations Agenda 21 program. The next phase of that is now known as the United Nations 2030 Agenda, which is only moving the goalposts of Agenda 21. That's the only difference about it, really. It's just moving the goalposts. Moving the goalposts towards global governance, towards total control of resources and utilities. We're talking about moving towards a time where a technological revolution will be called for to move away from the carbon-based industries. And this new technological revolution will have nice shiny bits to it that make us all go, oh, that's nice, it glitters. We'll all be excited. Oh yeah, new technology, wonderful. But what it will do is give the establishment the infrastructure for a scientific dictatorship. It will provide complete tracking and monitoring of all things. They'll create a smart world, self-monitoring, analysing and reporting technology. And the impetus for this will be because of climate change, because they need to shift away from fossil fuels and all the other carbon-based industries they are blaming for changes in the climate. Even though we're still emerging from the little ice age, as far as the cycles of our planet are concerned, what we're getting is local regional warming because of all the increase in cirrus clouds and contrails and all the other artificial cloud that we're seeing stimulated because of the contrails or chemtrails. Because I do subscribe to the idea that they are adding materials into the fuel or into the exhaust plume to deliberately create contrails. And then they can create droughts, floods, storms, etc. to be falsely attributed to the global warming threat, which has been invented. Just find a book called The First Global Revolution, written by the think tank group, the Club of Rome. And there you will find that they state democracy is an obstacle for their agenda. And they were searching for an enemy to unite nations. And they came up with the idea that the threat of global warming and water scarcity and food shortages would fit the bill. They've invented this catalysm of fear, this catalyst, this fear catalyst. They've invented it because it's a global problem that requires global responses. And they want to manufacture public consent. So we acquiesce to these grandiose plans for one world government. And it will be done tiptoe, tiptoe, tiptoe. Global governance, globalization, interdependencies, treaties. And slowly but surely, or quite rapidly really, we're moving towards this one world government where the oligarchy will get complete control, the ultimate global empire, where we will be slaves. We are free-range slaves right now, but our status will become ever tighter and more difficult to live with as it gets to the stage where one day they will be scanning our DNA wherever we go. They will be reading our thoughts with the brain interface computer from the Human Brain Project or the Blue Brain Project in America. And this is where they want to take technology, where they can monitor our thoughts. Literally. Thought crime will be a force to be reckoned with when they can read our minds with our computers. That is their goal. And all of that technology, that amazing technology they're developing through programs like Horizon 2020, needs this global threat as the catalyst for change. It's time to wake up, my friends, because our skies look ridiculous. They look like a sci-fi movie. They don't look anything like normal. They're miles and miles and miles away from when I was growing up as a boy in the 70s and 80s. It's ridiculous to say, oh, you've just got contrails because of extra planes. Well, there's no doubt there's extra planes, and that's by design. After the deregulation of American aviation industry in the 1980s and the deregulation of the European aviation industry in the 1990s, sure, we saw a whole lot more planes. That's because they need more planes for their inadvertent weather modification. It's part of their design. But let's go back to the 1970s and 80s. There were some air corridors that have always been busy. Those air corridors serving the busiest airports in the world would certainly have seen the same level of traffic that I see. But in the 1970s and 80s, well, there may well have been contrails, but we didn't see skies like this underneath those busy air corridors. Something dramatic has changed, because underneath those busy air corridors, they were always busy. So we should have lots of images of the sky like this, at least underneath those busiest air corridors in the 1970s and 80s, but there aren't there. But you do get lots of pictures of military areas where they were experimenting, and yeah, okay, they did have contrails. Yes, but not to this extent, even under those busiest air corridors. We didn't see all this sort of refraction of light in the sky looking like a chemical puddle. When we see oil drops from a car that's in a puddle in the rain, and we see all these different colours, this iridescent colour, we didn't see that in the sky. We didn't see all the halos we see all the time. We didn't see all the Kembos, and, you know, it's just absolutely ridiculous what we can see in the sky now gets normalised. It's far from normal. It's absolutely far from normal. And society is drifting into a sci-fi world, and that's the intention. We're supposed to be accustomed and even demand and want this scientific dictatorship, all the gadgets. We're supposed to want it. We're supposed to think it's great. We're supposed to think it's awesome. Imagine the Google Drive that they want to bring in. No more pleasure in driving. You'd just be a passenger. So they even take away the pleasure of driving. And then, of course, they can restrict where you go. They can restrict how far you travel. And the technology is already been trialled from 2001 on how to tax you for every mile you drive, or kilometre, depending where you are. This is how they're going to tax us to the hilt. They're even going to tax you for what you use in your own home. If you've got that Hoover on for too long, or the vacuum cleaner, and you're cleaning too long, your smart meter's going to grass you up and you're going to get a fine. And they're going to push us to a cashless society. So they'll take that fine off you straight away. Bam, it's gone. The amount of job losses because of automation and this massive technological breakthrough they're going to bring through is going to be devastating to society and force us into a socialist totalitarian system. Now, I have a lot of socialist leanings because I don't think that corporations should have as much power as they do. I think all natural resources and utilities should be in the hands of nations. The people should own those to benefit the people. Doesn't mean I'm a communist or anything like that. But this socialist totalitarian system they want to bring in just means they want all of us living as slaves to their system. But ironically, they're going to design a system so supposedly we're all going to want it and be happy. We're going to love our servitude. That's the plan. We're all supposed to ask for this. We're supposed to want the new world order. We're supposed to say, that's better. We want it. It's brilliant. Yeah, because our planet's in real trouble because of mankind. Mankind's the enemy. Look at us. We're destroying the planet. Well, I'll tell you what. None of us invented plastic. None of us are in charge of any toxic industries. None of us own mines. None of us are responsible for the toxic damage to our planet. And we've all been groomed to live in a throwaway society. There once was a time when I was growing up, people used to have hand-me-down furniture and hand-me-down clothes, and we were glad to have them. Now it's go to IKEA, have it for a few years and throw it away, or it's broken and you've got to replace it anyway because it's built-in obsolescence. Think about it. We've been groomed to become this self-loathing, these throwaway people, throwaway consumer society. That's been forced upon us. It's not the way we were, it's the way we've become by design. Social engineering. And then they can justify forcing all the changes on us. It's time to wake up, my friends. We're being massively manipulated by all the think tank organisations owned and run by the oligarchy. It's time to wake up. The oligarchy are bad for this planet. They're a nightmare. They're responsible for all the wars and all the poverty and all the famine. They're disgusting. It's time to take the world back, my friends. And the only way we're going to do that is by learning to unite, overcoming all our differences, being honest with ourselves that we're victims of all the different isms, and overcoming those differences, celebrating our differences, so we can all unite as mankind against the oligarchy, the maniacs, the insane maniacs who want a one world government so they can dominate the planet. Yeah, these crazy megalomaniacs, they need to be stopped. They are the worst custodians this planet could have. Unfortunately, they have all the power, but they're a very small group. So what we have to do is inform ourselves and inform everybody else. We've got to wake everyone up. We've got to break the spell of apathy. And we've got to become campaigners, activists, or just people that talk to someone standing next to them at the bus stop. We've got to be taking part. We've got to be the change we want to see, because they rely on us being quiet, having our spirit broken. They rely on the apathy. They depend on the apathy. When we all become active and start taking part in what happens, it's a big problem for the oligarchy, a massive problem. That's why they create all these different groups like Greenpeace and Friends of the Earth and everything else to control that element of people who do care and do want to make change. Controlled opposition. It's got to be grassroots. It's just got to be everyone talking to each other. It's got to be so that everyone knows what's going on, and that's only going to happen if you inform yourself so you can inform others. So please do all the research you can and just tell everybody. Wake them up. Make that conversation a little bit enriching. it can be done. Take care, my friends, and bye for now. Whew, what a sky.